Samuel could feel a bead of sweat form on his forehead, but he tried to look as composed as possible. This was rather pointless behavior, of course, since this interview wasn't being recorded by any camera, but Samuel Monroe always saved face, no matter the circumstances. It drove him mad that Roger could remain so calm, as if he knew that botching this interview would be more detrimental for Samuel than it would be for him. Rather, it didn't just seem like he knew, it was as if he was consciously broadcasting it. Ignoring Samuel's glare, Roger pushed the record button, and the reels on the machine began spinning into life. He held a book between his mouth and the microphone to make sure that he was sitting at a proper distance from it. Then, he began dictating the time and date, probably for archival purposes. Date: Sunday, November 9th, 1975. Location: Monroe Residence, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is now 3:45 p.m. Roger's tone was resolute and professional. Clearly a pro at the job, he started the interview without missing a beat. Mr. Monroe, could you please introduce yourself to the readers? Such a simple question, but all the more unsettling. Who was Samuel Monroe? It had been so long since he had to think about that question that he had almost forgotten.
Why, yes,
Samuel said, clearing his throat.
I am Samuel Monroe, former CEO of General American Industries.
I'm sure that all of our readers are aware of Samuel Monroe, former CEO, but what I, and I'm sure all of our readers would like to learn today, is about the man outside of the suit. If you'll forgive my metaphor.
Why, yes,
Samuel said once again.
I suppose that's normal for these types of interviews. I wouldn't expect any less.
This was clearly bad, Samuel thought. He was fully expecting to ramble on about his business endeavors, or about how he had been so generous with his fortune, and how he donated millions of dollars to foundations such as the American Red Cross. This was clearly not going to be that type of interview. Samuel would actually have to think about his answers, rather than giving the usual prescriptive responses that he was used to from back in his younger years. I'm sure that's probably too loaded of a question to begin with, Roger said, seeming to catch on to Samuel's internal struggle. How about we start with your childhood?
What about my childhood?
Samuel asked, defensively. Have you heard of Sigmund Freud, Mr. Monroe?
Why, yes, of course I have. As I'm sure you know, running a successful business requires extensive research into human psychology, so that you can sell your product and advertise your brand in the best way that you can.
Samuel Monroe is now an old and fragile man, but when he said this, one could almost see the cigar smoke puffing in the air. And Roger's eyes might have been playing tricks on him, but it seemed as if a few of the old man's white hairs had developed a black sheen to them for a brief moment.